I think my top skill in my whole career has been being open to opportunities. And I tell
Hmm.
college students that all the time. Like, sometimes you don't know why somebody has tagged you for something,
Yeah.
and you just have to walk down that path a little bit further. And if you don't like it, you can always go back. Like, you'll always have your degree to fall back on. You'll always have your experiences to fall back on. But you might find that you love it. And that's exactly what happened to me, where data governance became and has become like my focal point. I wrote a book in it, I present at conferences in it. It's what I love to talk about. So I'm really like surprised that I maybe would have never found it if I wasn't open to opportunities.
Hey nerds, Monica here. Welcome to the Data Podcast for Nerds, where we get to talk to amazing professionals and ask them all about how they're using data to solve the world's problems. We're highlighting all the tips, tricks, and nerdy fun bits to make you the best data professional you can be. Today with us, we have Aakriti. How are you doing today, Aakriti?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Monica.
Thank you for coming on the show. I've wanted you on the show for a very long time, actually, so I'm glad to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here. I love watching your show. I love that on Spotify you can watch the video with it. It's so
Yes.
fun.
Yes. I love having the video, just like an extra thing. So, for our show, we typically start off on the nerdy side and we ask about people's origin stories. So, if you could please tell us about how you got to where you are today in your career.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. It's so much more fun than tell us about yourself. Um, because I'd like to think I'm like a little secret superhero. I don't know. Probably not. A little data
Me too. I love that.
superhero. So I am from India originally and came to the US for college. It surprises a lot of people. I went to Nebraska, and actually lived there for 10 years before moving to Arizona, which is where I live now. But I went to Nebraska to study actuarial science, and my motivation to study actuarial science was very superhero minded. I thought insurance was going to save the world, which is really funny. And when I was in high school, I used to volunteer at a local nonprofit in my city in India, and just found that there were a lot of like natural disasters that were affecting the local community, and really thought that something like insurance would be helpful. So I decided to go the actuarial science path, and went through 4 years of college and struggled because actuarial science is interesting but very difficult, and really loved the data side of things. So when I graduated, I ended up taking a tech job, as a data analyst at a tech startup. And I didn't know it at the time, but when they hired me, they knew that they needed me to learn how to computer program, and I had never done that before. So my first 2 weeks of work was kind of a test to see how much computer programming I could learn, and if I was going to get to keep my job.
What was the interview process like?
They did ask me if I knew how to code, and I said that I took computer science 101 in college and failed it. It was the only class I failed in college as an actuarial science major, which is saying a lot. Um, and they were like, "Okay, but anybody can learn to code, right?"
Mm.
And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a good learner. I'm good at learning stuff, and I enjoy learning things, and I really want this job or a job. And this one sounds cool." So that was kind of, yeah, my I had already interned for that company. They already knew my personality. I was a finance intern, so on a completely different side of things. And so it was kind of like a shot in the dark for both me and for them. But I ended up learning how to computer program. So I became a full stack developer in my 3 years while I was there. And while doing that, I also started a nonprofit that taught young girls how to computer program. So, which was really fun. I would learn the material on Saturdays and I would teach it on Sundays. And so sometimes the girls would have questions I couldn't quite answer, and we would walk through, the problem solving process and how I, as a computer programming adult, um, computer programming, was gonna figure out that answer. So it was a really good opportunity for me as somebody learning the content to then teach it to fourth graders on the weekend. So I,
Absolutely.
loved volunteering and kind of doing that on the side. Uh, in the midst of all of that, I ended up changing jobs and entering a data governance job, which I had also never heard of before and didn't really know much about. But the company I worked for was trying to start up a data governance program. And through starting a nonprofit, I had kind of shown that I know how to start things. And I knew data, and the main clients were the insurance industry and actuaries. And so I understood like the actuarial lingo, and could help come up with data definitions and things like that for that type of data. So I got hired into a data governance role and found that it really well suited me. It was a really good combo of this like, math data mind that I had and the problem solving that I enjoyed, but also like the customer service, like caring for others and just general extroversion that I had in my personality. So I worked there for 3 years, and then, now for the past 3 years, I've been working with American Express, where I've been both on the operational side as well as, now I'm on the, like, global policy writing side, which is really interesting. So for the first 2 years, I got to work directly with our data, work with people within the business, coming up with our data quality rules, coming up with our business definitions for data, doing pure data governance work. And now I'm on a team where we get to write our global enterprise wide policy for data governance, um, which is really cool to get to like shape how things are going. My other big piece of news is, through my work in the nonprofit space, I just recently published a book. And so that's my like big thing that's been going on lately. Published a book about data governance change management and sort of lessons we can take from the nonprofit world and through my experience in data governance to help grow data governance programs. So, very often in data governance, we're working with very few resources. And we're kind of like I was in my second job, where, I've been told to start a data governance program. I don't really know what that means, um, but I have to figure it out. And
Mhm.
so, the book is a handbook based on the anchor model, which I made, um, that talks about how to, take you step by step into doing that. So I'm really excited to put that out there, and it's been out for less than a week. So that's been super exciting.
That is very super exciting. Before we deep dive and nerd out on your book, because that's totally what we're going to do, I have so many questions about your
Yeah.
background. So let's first start off by talking about your transition to your first job from your internship, because it sounds a lot like it was an internal position. And although you didn't have the experience, that coding experience that they were looking for, they still thought you were a great candidate because you showed that you knew how to learn really quickly and you were already part of the company. What kind of advice would you share for other kind of career changers
Mhm.
that are wanting to transition within their company?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when you're inside of a company, they already know your personality, they've already worked with you. And I say all the time that people get hired with, your skills are transferable, but people hire people that they want to work with. So when you're in an interview, they already believe that you have some skills related to the job or that you could do that job. They're really trying to figure out whether you're a good fit. When you're already inside the company, every day is your interview, right? You're being interviewed constantly when you're talking to your coworkers. They're trying to figure out if you'd be cool to work with, if you can answer things well, if you are a good resource, if you're a helpful teammate. Um, two pieces of advice. So, number one, if you're already inside of a company and you're trying to transition to a different role, try to learn more about that role. Talk to the people that are working in that department, express your interest, do some shadowing if you can. Just try to soak up as much of it as you can and really focus on what skills you have that you could transfer or what skills you could help add on. So think about what you could learn, what you could build up. If you're outside of a company and you're trying to transition into a different industry or a different role, um, something like data governance is a great example, right? There's no degrees in data governance. So everybody who comes into data governance is transferring from a different industry or a different field. and coming into this space. So, a really great thing to do there is, again, think about your transferable skills. Um, Maybe you're a really good communicator, and that's really helpful in data governance because you're working with a lot of different people. You're trying to translate complex information. I used to do that as an actuary all the time, right? I would have to explain actuarial tables to people that don't understand math. And so, really, if you're working in any field of data, you're already doing that. And so, how can you describe that really well? And then the other thing I would recommend is if there are skills that you need to build, how can you show experience in those skills if you're not actually working in it? Places like nonprofits are a great way to do that. So, let's say you're trying to move into like a project management role. Could you project manage something for a nonprofit through some volunteer work? If you're trying to move into like an accounting role, could you be the treasurer for a nonprofit? Nonprofits are happy to have you doing those types of skills, doing that type of work. You're saving them a lot of specialized, expenses that they would be spending. And they also have a little more leeway for you to learn. And you could use that to learn that skill and then show that experience within your interviews, to show that you have an interest and that you've been doing it, even if it's not part of your like main job.
Yeah, those are really great takeaways. So, with your nonprofit, it sounds like you were living exactly what you just said, where you're just learning every day and you're applying it real time and
Mhm.
helping the girls code. First off, what language were you focusing on?
Yeah, so the languages I started learning first were JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So
Okay.
like web development for data reports. That was my goal at work. And how I found this nonprofit is there were a group of people teaching kids to code already, very informally, and they were teaching these same languages. So web development is a great like foot in for children because it's very colorful and fun, and there's so much you can do with it.
Yeah.
And so it was very helpful for me to enter. So actually, I started first just teaching, volunteer teaching, and then ended up taking over that organization and founding it into what's called Girls Code Lincoln. So it's based out of Lincoln, Nebraska. Um, we teach we've taught hundreds of kids how to computer program at this point. And so it was really cool to be a part of that, but also just a really great way to hone in on my coding skills and put them to practice in a kind of stressful environment, I would say, but a very, very encouraging environment.
What makes it a stressful environment?
Well, I think as adults, we're very used to expecting to know answers.
Ah, yes.
And especially when kids ask us questions, we're used to saying, yeah, of course, here's the answer. Of course, I know the answer to that question. And when you're just learning how to computer program and you have 7 girls around you that are also learning how to computer program, you don't know the answers. There's no way for me to know all the answers to what they want. Um, I sometimes don't know the words, right, when I'm just learning.
Mhm.
And so it helps to have volunteers around me that also know limited to more information than I do that can help kind of answer questions. But I think what made Girls Code Lincoln so successful and what made our lessons so successful is that we didn't give them answers.
Mhm.
We really walked through the process of like, okay, you're trying to figure out how to code this color. Well, let's go ahead and find what the codes for this color would be. Like, let's find the hex code. And then here's how we would put that in, but we don't really know how to put that into the CSS. So let's Google that too. Like, let's go to Stack Overflow, figure this out together. So, what we were really giving the kids, just because we didn't know the answers, we were also giving them the ability to problem solve. And it was
Absolutely.
helping both this fourth grader and me learn how to be a good computer programmer, which is really interesting. And a lot of times we would get to a question where we can't even find the answer. So we taught them, we're going to put it into Stack Overflow. We're going to wait for an answer to come in. And maybe
Ooh.
next week we'll have an answer. Or, maybe we can go ask some other people. Let's go ask our peers in class, or let's go ask our other volunteers. Has anyone ever done anything like this? And so we started talking about pair programming. We had girls explain their issues, just like they would to a rubber duck, right? Like talk through your code. We talked to them about ESLint, how you would build in a linter into your coding so that you could find issues more easily, things like that. So it was a really good lesson for me on, how to teach and how to learn, not just for myself, but also for these kids. And they had the most amazing ideas, better ideas than I would have ever come up with on what they wanted to do with their website. And so sometimes I couldn't really dream up what they were going to ask me in class, and I couldn't get ahead of it. But
Yeah, but that's the best part, right? Just all
yeah,
of the just most interesting questions that you get asked as a teacher.
yeah, exactly. And so you just try it, right? You try your code out and you experiment, and that's what we do as computer programmers.
Mhm.
And honestly, that's what we do as data people. Like a lot of times we don't have the answers. We're trying to solve a problem that's never been solved before. And so how
Mhm.
do we just get to the next best step in that problem solving process is really our goal.
I love that you were showing problem solving, but to a deeper level. Like you were showing research skills and like how to ask other people, how
Mhm.
to, post in threads like Stack Overflow. Like there's different mediums that you can use
Yeah.
to problem solve. And I think that's such a good skill for anyone to be able to learn. And of course, at a young age, like that's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because as we're aware, there's a discrepancy in how many girls and women are in STEM fields. And computer programming is one of the starkest differences in the number of men and women. I don't know the updated statistic, but when I was working in this 5 to 6 years ago, we were looking at like 19% women in the field, even though we're US population is 50% split,
Mhm.
and women were getting college degrees at the same level that men were. So we really were having a hard time attracting women towards computer science and keeping them there. And there's a lot of research that's been done into why that happens. And some of that, a very large portion of it actually happens around middle school for a young girl. And it happens because they don't feel like they're smart enough to keep up with the problem solving in their classes. Girls are taught to be perfect, and computer science doesn't allow you to be perfect. You can't be.
Mhm.
It's not humanly possible to write the perfect line of code every single time the first time you write it. And so girls were feeling like they were failing. And then add on some like anxiety and awkwardness from puberty, add in the pressures of the boys making fun of you in class, add the pressure of being nerdy, being seen as a bad thing. And we're losing girls. That's what's happening. So, yeah, I think it's really important to talk about the problem solving of it because we're trying to teach them the problem solving skill. And that's why computer science is taught to young girls, not because we want them to learn JavaScript, but because we want them to learn how to solve a problem. And then doing something like web development really helps them see that it's fun. And it was really interesting. I used to do a lot of public speaking in relation to this, where we would go and talk about, what we're doing at this nonprofit. I've given a TED talk where I've talked about how to get girls into STEM, where we talk about these three things, making it fun, showing them representation, stuff like that. But I think the most interesting talk I've ever done is I would teach adults at like a leadership conference how to computer program, and it would be the exact same lesson we teach on day 1 of Girls Code Lincoln.
How did they do?
Terribly. We're so bad at it. And the reason we're bad at it is because a 4th grader is willing to take a risk. When you
Yes.
tell a 4th grader, "Hey, can you delete the chunk of code that comes default on this website?" She's not
Mm.
gonna think about it. She's just gonna hit delete. An
True.
adult wants to, like, save it away in case they need it later. I'm like, "You actually don't need this later because I'm telling you you don't, but also
Mm.
you got it in the first place from somewhere. Like, you didn't paste it in, so you don't need to paste it out. Like, we can just restart." Um, there's this, like, fear of taking a risk that we experience in adult women that a 4th grader doesn't have, but we notice, like, a 7th grader does have that. And so we're losing girls somewhere, and we're losing that, like, risk-taking ability, and that's what we're trying to build when we teach young girls to code. Sorry, very sidetracked here. But
I love this. No, this is fascinating.
my top nerd topic is probably young girls and computer programming and how to
Yes.
teach young girls how to computer program. That's probably what I nerd out the most about, honestly.
You're very passionate about it. I love it.
It's so important, right? Because like I think about why I went to school for data and never thought I could do code.
Yeah.
And I took computer science 101, and I remember that class was very difficult for me, and I felt lost constantly.
Mhm.
And if I had mentorship and resources during that time, maybe I would have gone to school for computer science because I'm good at it now. Maybe I would have been good at it then.
True.
Um, and maybe I would have had more options when I graduated college than I did. Not saying that I chose a bad path, but our goal is to give children as many options as they possibly can have. And so it helps to kind of get them early interested in some of these STEM fields.
Completely agree. So let's talk about your transition into data governance. This whole nother new, what is this realm? So talk about that transition and what skills you brought with you to help you succeed.
Yeah, so I was in a job interview for a data analyst position, and they had like the hiring manager's peer interview me, and he was running the data governance department. We're starting to start up the data governance department. And in the middle of my interview, he like stopped me mid sentence and told me to go learn about data governance and come back. He's like, go learn about data governance, call me back in 20 minutes.
He gave you 20 minutes?
Yeah, he's like, and I'm like, I don't have 20. This is lunch. I'm at lunch for my actual job that I own, that I have right now. So I don't have 20 minutes. So I read the Wikipedia in like 5 minutes, tried to understand whatever I could, and called him back. And I told him, like, hey, I've never heard this term before. I don't fully understand what I've read, but here's what I do know. Like, here, I understand data is important. I understand data quality matters. I understand like people talk about data, the same piece of data in different ways at the same company. Um, and there's like miscommunication. And I think the skills I brought in were like starting something. Like I had at that point started a nonprofit that was fairly successful. And so how do you go through the problem solving process of growing something and starting
Mhm.
something, building, bringing people in? I talk about a lot of this in the book because it's interesting how my nonprofit background really helped me with my data governance background. It's a very unusual link that it took me a really long time to realize why this guy even hired me for this job. But he definitely saw something in me that I did not see in myself and I would have never chosen for myself. I think I also brought a lot of my like customer service type personality where I'm definitely like a helper personality. If you've taken the Enneagram, I'm a 2 and I'm textbook like helper. I go to a party and do the dishes, like that's who I am. I'm like I hate doing the dishes in my own house. I won't ever do them, but at a party I need to be helpful. And so data governance was a good, you know, we have a problem across the company, like we need your help to solve it, Aakriti, can you help? And so that was a good, it like went into my personality a lot and like my need to assist. Um, which I think also ties very closely back to my nonprofit background of, there's a job to be done, you just do it. You figure out how to do it. Somebody's got to do it. So that was helpful. And then the translating complex information skill set was really helpful. Most data governance people are not analyzing data. So
Mhm.
I really wasn't using my computer programming skills or my analytics skills in that job. Um, but I was talking to a lot of people that were doing that work. So
Mhm.
being able to talk to them in their language and then being able to translate that to somebody like to marketing's language or finance's language was a very important skill. And so I think that was another one that I transferred in that was helpful.
Yeah.
But yes, very weird transition. I think my top skill in my whole career has been being open to opportunities. And I
Mhm.
tell college students that all the time. Like, sometimes you don't know why somebody has tagged you for something,
Yeah.
and you just have to walk down that path a little bit further. And if you don't like it, you can always go back. Like you'll always have your degree to fall back on, you'll always have your experiences to fall back on, but you might find that you love it. And that's exactly what happened to me, where data governance became and has become like my focal point. I wrote a book in it, I present at conferences in it. It's what I love to talk about. So I I'm really like surprised that I maybe would have never found it if I wasn't open to opportunities.
It's very true. Okay, so we have to nerd out on your book now. All right, so you have a book, Data Governance Change Management, and I absolutely love the motto, every data leader needs an anchor. Please nerd out on this with us.
Yes, okay. So for years I've been doing nonprofit work. I went and got a master's degree in like nonprofits and change management and like how to create change in your community. And then I started data governance work and found that I was doing the same stuff. I was in a big company doing stuff with no money, no resources, and I was walking around trying to find volunteers for my little data governance initiative. And I was trying to figure out how to get people involved. And I was doing the exact same thing. So the book is themed after Anchor, and so ships and water and stuff like that. And Anchor is actually mnemonic, so it's ANCHOR, and that is the change management model that I created to apply to data governance. And it applies to lots of other areas because I've been using it in the nonprofit space for years, and in the data space, and it works in both very strongly. My co-author uses it in marketing, and so it works in lots of spaces. But basically, it focuses on how do you create something that lasts? How do you create a program that's a ship, right? And how do you like stick that anchor down and make it something that's sustainable in your organization? Um, the book and the model, the way that I say we do that is we really have to figure out like why this initiative matters, um, why it matters as a company, and then why it matters to the individuals that are a part of it, and why it matters in connection to the priorities of the organization. So that's what aim and need, A and N, do. Um, the C is community. So we talk about how to bring people in. Um, it's that whole chapter is about people. It's about how to communicate with people, how to find your volunteers in your company, how to upskill them so that they want to stay. You know, how do we create transferable skills for these people? How do we figure out what they want and motivate them to be a part of our program, even if they're not being paid to do that? The H kind of goes along with that. It's hooray with an exclamation point, where we talk about celebrating. So, how do we celebrate our volunteers and the people that are involved? Sharing our successes is a really important aspect of getting people to hear the story of what we're doing and to want to get involved as well. So, hooray really helps you kind of build that community aspect, bring more people in. The O is your obstacles. And so you'll face numerous obstacles as you go. And just like every change model, there's countless obstacles that are a part of it. But I really focus on obstacles that no one else really talks about. So we talk about like organizational bias. We talk about things that you can do to inspire people. Um, and then R is resilience. So that's where you stick your anchor in the ground, get yourself to stay. And this process of ANCHOR isn't linear. We're constantly going back and forth between these, different stages. Um, but resilience is really where we talk about how to build on top of each other. So that's where you're building your tower and really getting yourself to stay. You're going to start with one brick. You're going to add more bricks as you go. Um, the the model is interesting because there's no other change management model that I'm aware of or that's heavily talked about that talks about that focuses on people wanting to be a part of the change process. So every other change management model, you're basically looking at your employees as resistors of your change. You're talking about change as a negative thing that's happening. And in data governance, I don't think that's true, right? In nonprofit work, that's not true. Change is good. We are building something that's important, but change is still challenging. And so the model really focuses on like figuring out why people want to be involved and getting them involved for those reasons instead of telling them, hey, here's why you need to be involved, and then just like forcing that down their throat and then being upset when they're not involved. Um, I think like one of the main ways that I do that is something called change therapy or data therapy, where we do therapy sessions with people and we figure out why data governance is important. And that concept can be modeled in any industry, right? We in marketing we talk a lot about like knowing your customer, and that's really what we're doing through change therapy. We're trying to figure out where the problems in our business lie, and then figure out how to solve those problems because those are the ones we know about instead of just solving like a pie in the sky issue. So I'm really excited to put Anchor out there. I've been presenting on this for many years at conferences, and so it's really cool to have written a book. It's my first book. I'm just very excited to have that out there where people can, take it, reread it, look at it, piece it apart, and use it. Where I feel like sometimes at conferences that can be challenging, and I'm excited for people to have access to it without having access to me, which is also something really rare that you don't get at conferences. So, yeah, just super pumped to see what people do with it, and to hear more stories about, how it can be used in different spaces.
Yeah. And what's unique about your book is that it can be used in different spaces. It's not just for the nonprofit world or just for the data world, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So a lot of my research was done through the nonprofit space, before I was applying it to data governance. And then I realized that I could apply it to data governance. So then we did further research on what could be done in this space. My co-author is in academia. He's a professor, and so he's done a lot of the like pedagogy and like academic research side of the models that exist and where the gaps were and where this could fill that up. But his background is also in marketing and product launches, and so we're able to kind of pick from that as well. So it's really interesting to see it being used in these three industries: marketing, nonprofits, and data. And a lot of the concepts are people focused, and those people focused problems are similar anywhere that
Mhm.
people are. So I'm giving a presentation in about a month where I'm talking about it in to be used in the AI space and how we can, prepare for AI implementation and the changes that come as part of that and get the people ready. Monica, I know that's your nerd out topic specifically. Um, but I think that's going to be the coolest part of this to see where people can apply it, and what aspects of it they could use in different spaces.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. What else can you share about the book?
So the book is out there. It's on Kindle or print. It's very weird to be able to search your own name on Amazon.
I bet.
I think that's the like weirdest part. But it's available if people want to go to my LinkedIn, they're welcome to grab a link for it, or our website is anchoryourchange.com. And on there there's discount codes as well for print copies. So if anyone wants to grab like a copy from our publisher, we've got 25% off. We're going to be starting a book club in October where me and my co-author will work through the book, chapter by chapter with everybody who comes in. So it'll be a Zoom call. It's completely free. We're just excited to see what people do with the content. And so it'll be really fun to workshop it. The book is very much, it's one of those books that you want to like write in. There's spaces for you to write in it. So when we were brainstorming names, we originally were going to call it like a toolkit or like a workshop book, but it's basically if you were to go to a conference and they gave you a bunch of worksheets to work on, those worksheets are in the book.
Okay.
So, I'm really excited for people to grab it and, scribble all over it and take notes and really apply the stuff. And so yeah, just so pumped to have that out there, for people to take advantage of.
I'm very excited for you. It sounds very actionable.
Yeah, and that was the goal, right? Because I feel like there's so much content out there,
Mm,
but it's really hard to figure out how to apply that content into your
mm,
setting.
yep.
And when I was starting a data governance program for the first time, I don't understand how to do that. I don't have the knowledge or the experience to know how to convert, theory into something practical. But I also don't have the time. Like, I just don't have the energy or the time. You have so many competing priorities as a middle manager and very little time, energy, budget to figure out how to do that. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that was the goal of the book, that somebody could take it and run with it, and they don't have to read it to cover. They could go to the section they need right now, and they could pull out a template that they can apply immediately, or they can, answer 3 reflection questions and figure out what their next step is. And the goal really is to get you to your next best step in this process. How do you little by little build a better program? You're not gonna like boil the ocean. That's not gonna happen. It's not a like quick band-aid fix solution type book. It's a
Mhm.
we're gonna work through this together, and me and my co-author are gonna be there with you as you're working through this program, and we're gonna make it better little by little and build that resilience. And you're gonna notice that. You're gonna notice incremental change because that's how good change happens. We don't create big changes or good changes by making fast changes.
I love that.
They have to be thought out, they have to be incremental. Also in the book, I interviewed a number of people in the industry. And so it's really great to have little stories and quotes from people that have implemented this type of work. So for somebody starting out, that's especially powerful. They can see how it's been done, not only just by me and my co author, but by 10 other people that are in the industry and are all practicing this work right now. So it's a book full of thoughts from practitioners. It's a great way for people to pick up what's going on in our industry at the moment, and to kind of take something that they can apply immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for you in this book.
Thank you for all of your support.
Absolutely. So, one question that I ask all of my guests, and I have to ask you this as well, is how do you learn new things? And you sound like the perfect candidate for this. You've been all over the map learning all of the things all the time. So, how do you go about learning new things?
Yeah. Okay. So I am a really big podcaster. So I love listening to podcasts. So um, I'm not great at, I want to be a better reader, but I'm really not a great reader. So I'm very like audiobook podcast. So whenever I'm driving anywhere, I'll be doing that. But then the other thing I do really often is whenever I talk to other people around me, I always ask them how they're learning, or like, what's an interesting thing you read about lately? What's an interesting book you're reading? Did you listen to something cool lately? Things like that. And I think that really helps, with like quick pieces of knowledge,
Mhm.
or like the problem with a podcast or an audiobook is sometimes you need to know the topic that you're looking to learn about before you can find what you need, what the content you need.
Mhm.
And sometimes I don't know that topic. I don't know what I should be learning about. And so talking to other people around me and asking them what they've recently learned about is really helpful. Um, and you don't need to they don't have to be an expert on the topic. I think people assume like if you're going to learn something about AI, you have to go find an AI expert. No, everybody around you has opinions and thoughts on these topics. And it's okay for you to hear those and then like critically evaluate whether you agree, or you might hear terms that you've never heard before, and then you can like go Google them and find more information. So I do
Yeah.
that a lot where I'll kind of try to have my ear to the ground and pay attention to what my peers are talking about over, water cooler chats, or on LinkedIn, what are they posting about, things like that.
It's interesting to hear different perspectives so you get a holistic view.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much information out there now. You can, with ChatGPT or really with anything, like there's so much out there. You could ask a question and dig so deep if you wanted to.
Do you have any other tips, tricks, nerdy fun bits for us out there? Recommendations, words of encouragement?
I think words of encouragement. I never thought I would write a book. I'm 30 years old and I wrote a book, and that's kind of crazy. It's very exhausting as a process. But I think my encouragement for people is if you have something you're interested in talking about, presenting about, writing about, do it. Like apply to speak at the conference or apply to be on a panel or write a blog post for LinkedIn or write a book if that's what you want to do. Reach out to me, I'll help you. Um, but there's so much out there, there's so much content that sometimes it feels like we don't need to put more content out into the world, but you're not really sure what people are going to resonate with. And that's how learning works, right? Like you're just trying to give people as much as they can that they might be able to resonate with. So don't be afraid to put your voice out in the world. And don't be afraid to do something even if you don't think it's related to your career, to your interests or whatever, right? Um, for a really long time, I was doing nonprofit work very separately from data work. And somehow they converged, and that was really weird to me. I used to always say, like, I'm a, data person by day, nonprofit volunteer by night, nonprofit founder. And now for me to go, come on a data podcast and talk about both of them in the same breath is really fascinating. And that's not a link I would have ever seen or imagined for myself. But I always say, like, I don't know if you think back to like fourth grade English literature, um, you know, c- characters in books are either flat or round. They have like a flat personality, they're just one thing, or they're round characters and they have lots of like facets to who they are. And like we're round people, like we have round personalities. And like you're Monica who does training and consulting, but you're also Monica who hosts the podcast, right? And sometimes those are not related directly, but they do feed into each other. And so I tell people all the time, like, don't be afraid to talk about, your nonprofit at work or talk about the thing you did with your family over the weekend at work because they, you're more than just one thing and you don't really know where those connections are going to build and you don't really know how these things are going to play into each other.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously be appropriate, but other than that, um, it's okay for us to be more than just, the thing we do at work.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. That's a great ending. Well, thank you so much, Akriti, for coming on the show. Where can people find and or follow you if they have any questions?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, Aakriti Agrawal. You'll see my smiling face on there. But I'm also on Instagram. So if you're looking for a little more like personal, what's going on with my life, that's Instagram. I keep all my professional stuff on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Well, thank you again. And as always, folks, happy learning. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Data Podcast for Nerds. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you want to transition your career and become a data professional, follow me on LinkedIn for even more tips, tricks, and nerdy fun bits.